Rideshare assault litigation. Yes, rideshare assault litigation. That's something I've seen some advertisements that some probably would say, for some reason, comes to my mind, are sleazy law firms wanting to just be litigious and sue. But I mean, that's their business. Every business has to operate somehow, right? And one of the ways that they do is using something, I think it comes from marketing, that's called agitate, or problem, agitate, solve, right? Present a problem, agitate the problem by, you find the problem. Yeah, of course, rideshare assaults are a real thing, and that we'll get into that a little bit. But they present the problem, and then they agitate it by playing it up a little bit, and then they present themselves as the solution, right? So you can buy their product or service. I mean, that's how you promote certain services and things like that in some aspects. So that's where that comes from. I actually know someone personally that I met on a now defunct app that was called Callin, Callin, and I'll ask her if sometime she wants to do an interview, because she's been, I believe she's published about it, and so it's already public information, but that she was actually assaulted as an Uber driver by a passenger, and it was pretty bad and traumatic. So I may interview her sometime. This particular ranting talk will go on my podcast called Toyota Crown versus Uber driver, because there are a few things here that, besides the rideshare assault litigation that I'll be covering, that is actually important information for a lot of people to know. So the first of those, getting right into it, something personally that I've noticed. So for one, I voted in and chosen to represent the southern region and the state of Virginia. And I say southern region because I've spoken to Uber drivers through the different Zoom meetings, not only in Virginia, but all the way down to Florida, and even some in various other states. And so I have an independent contract and a somewhat of a consulting position through a third-party organization called Street Level Strategy. You can find it on my LinkedIn, some more details about it. But as something called an Uber crew team member. And so every 3 months, so that's once every quarter, we have meetings, sometimes there's more, with various Uber drivers, and we discuss different pain points and issues about the app, things to help improve the experience for both riders and the drivers. One of the first things to point out about this that's coming here, I'm really just randomly coming off the top of my head, flowing through this, but I have a general theme. And again, I'll get back into the rideshare assault litigation, which is the thing that really is leading into this. But one of the things that it seems like, due to the behavior of both riders and drivers, that may not be understood. And I think that by understanding this clearly, and when people begin to really get this through their minds, will change the behavior of everyone involved, the riders and the drivers. So one of the main things that a lot of people don't know, and the area that I cover is the Hampton Roads area mainly of Virginia. So that's Virginia Beach and surrounding areas. So this is Eastern Virginia. So one of the main things that a lot of people do not know, or at least it seems like it from their behavior, that Uber drivers are not employees of Uber. Unless they are, right? Unless they have another position with Uber in which they are employed by them. But most Uber drivers, and I'm speaking now definitely for the state of Virginia, are independent contractors. That means that if we are driving for Uber in the state of Virginia, we are independent business owners, small business owners running our own transportation business. Uber is not a transportation company. They don't own cars like that for that reason. Uber is a technology company. And basically what they do is they provide their technology to riders that they screen, who they allow the privilege to use their app, and they give us leads. That's what, when a person requests a ride on the Uber app, remember Uber, the app is technology, the technology that Uber Technologies provides, they are a lead that is generated, that goes out through the technology, the app, to riders who are online and in the area, and we have at our discretion the ability to either accept or reject that request. We accept or decline. That's what it says on our screen. It says accept or decline. There's a blue bar. I think it's either green or blue. I don't see. I don't pay that much attention to it. I should though, right? But it's either blue or green that says accept, and there's a red one right underneath that says decline. We can do that. We do not have to accept every ride. And once we do accept a ride and we look at it and we decide that we don't want it, we can cancel that ride. That's what it means. When we look at these leads, we can either accept them or decline them as independent business owners. And a lot of people who ride using the Uber Technologies app do not know that. And I am not just speculating about this, because I've asked and spoken to dozens of people who don't know that, who that's a surprise to them. They were really perplexed. And I've even said to people who've been troublesome, I said to a man the other day who was really drunk and complaining about the fact that I was listening to History of the Universe in my car, and I had to ask him I pulled over at a 7-Eleven, told him to get out of my car. I said, I do not, he was taking pictures of my license plate. I'm going to report you. You're going to get fired. And I just calmly told him, I said, I do not work for Uber. I don't work for Uber. Do whatever you want. If you do something egregious, you lose privileges to the app. So the first thing that just came to my mind when I said that egregious was something that there is an online group on Facebook called Uber and Lyft, Hampton, something like Hampton Roads Uber and Lyft drivers. And someone posted a link to an article about a guy in some other state. I don't remember where it is off the top of my head, maybe Indiana somewhere. But he raped and murdered a young lady, and supposedly, from what I could tell, admitted to it, and he's been arrested. And that's terrible. But there are other things that are much less than that people should be booted off the app from. But this is, so that's, and what litigation is going to go there? The guy's going to go to jail, of course. But what kind of compensation will any family ever really get for the loss of a loved one? Nothing can really, truly make up for that. Okay? So, I'm eating chicken noodle soup right now. It's delicious. And so that's just, these things happen. Now that's a driver assaulting a rider. But the opposite happens. Again, I mentioned earlier, someone that I met has a blog and has told the story that they were assaulted by their passenger. So it happens both ways, and that's what some of these ads online from these law firms are seeking, asking the question, have you been assaulted? during an Uber or Lyft ride. Now, why would I want to talk about this, and what information do I have that's interesting? So first of all, one thing that's interesting about people's nature, at least in this area, it's interesting. I haven't noticed it as much driving down in South Florida. It's only been since I've been in Virginia where I've had these really crazy issues. And there's something very similar to that in other things that I've done that I don't have problems with. Like, for example, I worked at a place called Club Atlantis on the Fort Lauderdale beach that had a capacity of 4,000, so there were hundreds and thousands of people in that place, and I never got into a fight. Come to a place in Virginia that I worked for at a year, worked security, and got into a fight that ended up on the local news, or at least the tail end of it. After the person left, they got shot in the arm by a police officer after the guy's friend got knocked unconscious by me when I belly-to-belly suplexed him on the concrete, which was not good, but the circumstances of it. He punched me in the face 4 times, and when I regained awareness, I was on top of him, and he was unconscious. And I apparently body slammed him on the concrete. Some kind of instinct kicked in, and that's what happened. I'm not happy about it. I'm not proud. I'm not bragging about it. Those are not things that I want to do. He could have been really seriously injured. I could have caused him some pretty serious brain damage and all that. But the point is, in Florida and working security in California and other places, I've never had any fights with people. Whereas in just 1 year of working at this place, towards the end of my position there, I had several different skirmishes, and then that one was really a fight. I mean, a couple other ones, weren't a big deal, but for some reason, I don't know. There's certain people and certain demographics in Virginia are very problematic. And one of the issues with this is how people regard and treat those who are in the service industries, like hospitality, servers, particularly at restaurants and bars and things like that. Not so much bartenders, but mostly like servers and, waiters and waitresses in restaurants, and also cleaning staff in hotels and things like that. People tend to look down on them because they're providing a service, right? Or because of the fact that taking a position like that as an independent contractor or an employee, because remember, before Uber there were taxi drivers, it doesn't require an advanced degree. It doesn't require a degree of any kind. All you need to do is get a driver's license. And as some of you may know, a lot of people out there with driver's licenses should not have them. I drive all the time, and there are a lot of people that cause me a great deal of wonder about why they are on the road, and just people in general who think that and consider themselves to be good drivers. Just the way that they drive, their hyper acceleration and hard braking, and just their basic inconsideration for just anybody else on the road. It's baffling. And there's a lot of reasons for that too. A lot of people are on medications, unfortunately. And I'm going to get into that in some metaphysical topics later on with one of the next books that I'll be writing, by the way, which you can check out some of the ones that I've already written by my website, worldreadingclub.com. But I've got some really cool stuff coming up, especially that will have the mark of my PhD. I'll be a Dr. Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander, and there'll be some really interesting metaphysical stuff coming up on that. But back to this, and the way that people treat people in the service industries. Examples are, people have come to the car, and there were more people than could be seated in my car, and they would say things like, I paid for this ride, so I'm like, you're not getting in my car with 5 people. Okay? That's the Uber X says the capacity is 4. 1 person in the front seat, 3 in the back. And I have the discretion to not let people in the car. You have seen those signs on restaurants, no shirt, no shoes, no service, right? Well, I can just say, I don't like you, no service. This is my business. A lot of people don't realize that. And again, the other reasons for that is that not a lot of people are very good at running their own small business, their own transportation. You're self-employed. Whether it's an LLC or a sole proprietor, you're the one doing the job itself. And a lot of people don't really take on a business mindset about that and run it as a business and make that clear. A lot of people, and something that comes to my mind right now is this book from Dan Kennedy called The No BS Wealth Attraction for Entrepreneurs, who made an example about between desperation, right? Like a desperate salesperson is like a desperate single person who you put off these desperate vibes, and that repels your potential, love connections. That desperation, that lack of confidence, that neediness, repels and pushes people away, whereas someone who's confident and is not putting out that needy energy is more attractive. And the same thing in sales. If you're really needy and you need to make that sale, you need to make that commission, it's that energy comes off to the person you're attempting to sell to, and it's repulsive. It repels them. And the same thing happens in running your small business, being an Uber driver, is that a lot of people just take any old rides that Uber throws at them. They will just take anything and go anywhere without using any discretion because they need to make that money. And that's understandable. It's just not necessary. A lot of people don't realize that if you wait, you can actually start to pick and choose certain things, and you can make just as much, sometimes if not more, than you were before by acting and behaving and accepting rides in a desperate type of way just to get what you think is money as fast as you can. It's just not necessary. But again, all that is to say that drivers and riders are not understanding that Uber drivers are not employees of Uber. We're independent contractors, small business owners. It may not seem like that. You're driving a car. We're not taxi drivers, but we're independent business owners. We have the discretion whether we want to accept or decline rides. And because of the fact that people aren't behaving in that way, that causes a lot of issues. Now, I've had some very interesting things. I've been threatened before, but I don't respond in the way that a lot of people might. And so that usually gets squashed really quickly. And I also expel people from my vehicle immediately when that happens. I don't care where we are. I have zero tolerance for any nonsense. It doesn't matter. Sometimes there have been rides where I've driven, up to 10 miles to get to somebody. And I have, done what you would call a vibe check and decided I wasn't going to take that person because I didn't want them in my car, and I canceled the ride. People might think that's crazy. They've driven 10 miles, they spent gas, and so they do it. Again, the desperation factor. You can save yourself a lot of stress if you practice a little bit more discretion. Now, so some interesting things about that. I think it's important that now that I've said all that it's important for riders that might be listening to this, and drivers especially, to understand that very clearly that Uber drivers are not employees of Uber. And regardless of how much Uber attempts to steer the behavior of drivers into accepting almost all the rides that are presented to them, it's not necessary. I appreciate that Uber has given me the privilege to use their app. However, they put on their own behavioral pressures by the incentives and certain things that they say about the app, and the rating system, and about your acceptance rate, and it shows it goes down and you lose certain privileges like platinum and other things like that. But for a person like me, none of that stuff matters. The platinum benefits that a driver gets, none of them have shown to be any benefit for me, even up to and including the what is it called? the Uber, oh my gosh, when you call in customer driver care rider, whatever it is. See, it's not even important. It doesn't even matter. So not too long ago, there have been 3 times, well, actually a couple of nights ago, somebody started throwing up in my car, but fortunately I was prepared for it. But one time somebody threw up in my car. I told him, I pulled over and said very calmly, you guys are going to have to get out of my car, and I ended the ride. Uber, I sent photos, Uber charged them $150. That was good. I had to clean my car. Second time, some really disgusting person who I should have not taken the ride after I smelled them. They smelled heavily like urine, and I knew that I was going to have to change my seat covers, but they actually left fecal stain, like liquid feces on the seats, and it was disgusting. I took pictures and sent that to Uber, and they paid me $150. And then another time, somebody threw up all over my car. I even had a picture of the person sitting in the car with the vomit all over their legs and all over the seats and everything like that. And Uber decided not to charge the person for that. It was actually done by somebody had called the ride for a friend of theirs, and it was one of the friends that was in the car that did it. The person who actually called the Uber wasn't riding, and Uber refused, even though I actually I fulfilled all of the requirements, which I got a professional cleaning, I got an invoice, and I sent all of that information to Uber within hours, and I was stonewalled about it. They did not. And then I did a talk about that, about something about vomit fraud is a real thing. It's also on YouTube somewhere. Vomit fraud. That Uber drivers have been claiming people have vomited in their car. They've charged riders $150 and they really didn't do it. So I'm going to wrap this up because I'm actually putting this audio not only to the podcast that's Toyota Crown versus Uber driver, but also there's a 30-minute video of me kickboxing at One Life Fitness in Virginia Beach, Red Mill location. By the way, really great trainer that I have there is Katie Wickoff. So she's a top trainer there at the gym. If you happen to be in the Virginia Beach area and you're looking for a great gym that's really clean and high quality and it's got great staff and you want a good trainer, Katie Wickoff is the one. So, in concluding this that I started off about the rideshare assaults and rideshare assault litigation, here's some final thoughts that are interesting to note. One is very peculiar and interesting to me. I'm going to have to talk to more riders about this. But one, as an Uber Crew team member, I have advanced use of an app. I'm pretty sure that this is not part of the non-disclosure, but I believe a feature that riders have already had access to, which I think that every rider should use this, is that when you pull up to the car, you have to tell the driver a 4-digit PIN, a personal identification number, and only once they put that in, or the last 4 digits of the phone number, if the person can't find it, but it usually shows up as a blue strip with 4 white numbers on it, only then can the ride start. If you put in the wrong code 5 times, then the ride is canceled. So, and now I have that turned on for all of my rides, and it helps me to put a barrier between people getting in my car. I've actually canceled several rides by vibe checking people with that. They come up to my car and people they're not even looking at anything. The car pulls up, they just walk right up. Sometimes before the car has even stopped, people are walking up and just grabbing the handle. I'm just thinking, man, you're going to break the hand. Why is the car still moving and you're walking up to it and grabbing the handle before it has even come to a full stop? And just grabbing on the handle they're just going to jump it. It's crazy. That's a behavior that I really want to stop. So first of all, the 4-digit PIN, I pull up, I roll down the back window because they're already there, ready to pull the door open. It doesn't open, and I say, may I please have the 4-digit PIN? And that depends on how the feeling I get or where I am. There's certain places that I pull up where I know that they're employees of a fast food restaurant, and I could tell that that's definitely them, or I just get a vibe, or I'm looking. And unfortunately, yes, I do prejudge people before they get in my car. But if I don't get a good feeling about asking them for the PIN, then I cancel the ride. And sometimes I tell them, I said, the other night, this is another pet peeve that I have, where people start walking up to the car while it's still moving when I can pull up to them. And they walk up to these places that if I stop where they're walking up to, it's going to block traffic and even cause accidents. Sometimes I feel like I was in a position last night where there was a young lady, and I opened my window and I said, "Hey," she said her name. I said, "I can't pick you up there. Please just walk on the other side of the grass there into the parking lot." And it took me a little bit longer, but it was right at a corner of a very busy intersection. I just don't understand. And see, this is also unprofessional drivers picking up people in these dangerous places, or else people wouldn't expect that. I don't think that people would always be doing that as much if riders weren't compensating stupid behavior. Because that's what it is. It's asinine, inconsiderate, stupid behavior. Everybody can get hurt. I just don't understand it. It's really nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense at all. Don't walk up to a car while it's still moving. Stop walking up to the car and just grabbing on the handle and opening it before you confirm and say hello to the driver. Give some kind of indication of something. Anyway, that's at least what I'm doing. So pull up. Sometimes I let the person sit down in the car. Like tonight, it's raining, so you can sit down in the car, and then, especially if they say their name, and I notice them, they sit down in the car, and then I ask 4-digit PIN, please. They give it to me, and then, some people I've asked for the 4-digit PIN. 4-digit PIN? I ain't never had no fucking PIN. I'm just, all right, roll up my window, and I just started driving off, and I cancel the ride. You're going to have that kind of attitude. I do not want you in my car, especially if it's going to be a long ride. I don't want anybody in my car with an attitude at all. Now, one thing that I've noticed, and this is interesting, when I first started doing the 4-digit PIN thing, people were having a lot of attitude as I was getting used to it, and my rating went from like a 4.92, not all the way down to a 4.84. And then I started doing some things a little bit differently. I started touching my 4-channel camera in the car and beeping it and everything like that, and then it slowly started fading. But then when I activated the feature on the Uber app, you can touch a blue shield. I believe that's also where all the safety features are for the riders as well. And I started turning on the recording. It sends the rider a notification that they're going to be audio and video recorded. And I also have in the app, in the About Me section, I use some graphics, and one of those red recording images that you can get, and it says, where's my public profile, and it has a nice big red circle that says surveillance 4-camera system is recording audio and video inside and outside of car. Right? It should be, there's other thing, like shows what languages I know and everything like that. But ever since I activated, and it was only like a week ago, the riders are getting the notification that they're being recorded. All of a sudden, all negative ratings have completely stopped, except for one. And here's what's really interesting about it, how I know why a lot of riders are straight up, and this is one of the very few things that these guys in the Hampton Roads Uber and Lyft drivers get right. Mostly they're just complaining and whining and showing off, I made this much, and nothing really useful there. They get right. A lot of riders straight up just lie about things that are going on with the driver. And the conclusion is that they're trying to get free rides and things like that. And they have no consideration for the fact that they're messing with potentially somebody's only stream of income. But it's gone completely down. And here's what's very interesting about the guy who gave me a 1-star rating. And I knew that it was going to be like that too, because a lot of people, I don't talk to anybody. I say hi, I'm polite and everything like that. But there was no reason. It was just a star. Normally people say not polite, or, was speeding or illegal driving. All of it completely stopped now that they understand that they're being recorded. So there's a few things in there. I'll probably touch on them again soon, but I'm only going to be here for 30 minutes and I've got 10 seconds left. And so that's it. The PIN, 4-digit PIN, And also, really, the important thing about that is that someone was got into a car that wasn't an Uber, and some opportunistic psycho took advantage of that, and the person was again killed. So, rideshare assault litigation. This is part 1, I suppose.